Hello, my lovely Lions, and welcome to another edition of the Almond View podcast with myself, Jake Pointer, my co-host Liam Innes.
Hello there.
And GIMP Mass panellists Thomas Fro, Owen Innes, and Mr. Stephen Bobby.
Hello.
Hello there.
This week we look back at the Lions Cup game from Saturday and discuss our moments of the match against those ruddy rovers of Wraith. We'll also be chatting to former Livingston midfield maestro Stevie Tosh as he talks all things West Lothian during his 2 spells with the luscious Lions.
We'll also look forward to our game against the Hoopy Boys by looking back at our favourite memories from the games against those absolute weirdos, Celtic FC.
So why not sprawl out on your sofa, stretch those weary legs, throw your favourite blanket over yourself, dim the lights, and listen to 5 Gimps chat all things Livingston FC with us here at the Almond View podcast. Oh, oh, ho, he's my Tej. You know, Poplatnik scored the winning goal. 'Twas the night before Easter, and baby, Livy went hunting for eggs. The eggs of success. The eggs of cup glory. The eggs of our prey. And baby, we roared to success. The Lions squeezed past Wraith Rovers 2-1 after extra time on Saturday in the Scottish Cup, thanks to goals from Jack Fitzwater and Matej Poplatnik after falling behind to a soft free kick. However, we've asked the boys to tell us their moments of the game. So, Owen, why don't you kick us off? What was your moment of the game against Wraith Rovers?
I thought it was a good game from a neutral point of view. Had kind of everything that you need. Goals for both sides. Good for a coupon. Robbie McCrory, what you doing? What are you doing? That wall as well. What's that wall doing? Probably the highlight of the match for me, though, was a potentially match-winning challenge from my favourite, Jackson Longridge. That is some challenge that he put in, because that could easily have been 2-1 Wraith Rovers, right at the death, game over. We could have been out the cup. Do I think that we deserved to win that game? No, I don't think that we deserved to win that game whatsoever. I think if it wasn't for extra time, a draw would have been more than a fair result, I think. But I think Jackson Longridge has been absolutely solid in the last 3 games that he started. I don't think anyone can deny that. And I mean, I know that a lot of people were like, what on earth are we doing signing Jackson Longridge? He can't make it. He's shite. You know, he's no improved. He's barely kicked a ball for Bradford or whatever. I think he's shown why Davies brought him back. And so my highlight, Jackson Longridge, last minute challenge to keep us in that game. Because otherwise it would have been 2-1. There's no question about that.
Fair enough. It's pretty hard to argue with that. Povey, what about yourself?
Obviously, the highlight has got to be seeing the Almond View podcast branded all over at half time and before the game. Lovely to see. Actually, to be honest, I was listening back to our episode last week, and I was thinking after that game, I thought, geez, I was pretty bang on with that prediction in terms of I thought it would be like the game last season, and we went 1-0 down first half. And then I'll be honest, at half time, watching that on Saturday, I thought I wasn't too concerned because I was thinking our fitness would be all right. It would see us through. Obviously, when we did get the equaliser, it was a relief because it was hitting that sort of, 70 minutes ago? It was hitting that sort of point where we needed it then. But once we scored, I would actually disagree. I think it probably deserved to go to extra time, but I felt we did deserve to win it, you know. Some great performances. And another thing that I enjoyed about that was listening back to last week's episode and you guys all bumming up McCrory about how great he's been I bloody tell you, man. As soon as you let that in, yeah, it was a hell of an apology text through that. And lastly, another bloody thing I say every week, J. Emmanuel Thomas, man. He did nothing. And that's against Wraith Rovers, so don't get me wrong, they're flying. But he's not a top six. He shouldn't be our number one striker. Like, he shouldn't be up there by himself. He's not good enough for us. And whatever. Yeah. Once again, I'm right about Jet.
You're always right, Povey. You always have to be right. Jake, what about yourself?
It was a tricky afternoon. I thought Wraith were great, in the first half. Really well organised. It was good. I think I kind of agree with Owen. I think arguably probably deserved a draw, but yeah, obviously great went to extra time. Buzzing for Ploppy. I think we've been singing his praises for quite a while on this show, and I think, I don't know what group chat it was, we said that he should be getting the spot ahead of Jet to give him more fitness, to give him more games, to see what he can actually do. Because there's nothing better. Like, it's the most basic thing for any football team when you see someone who gives absolute 110%, and even just on like social media and stuff like that, you see like he's actually really proud to be a part of the team and stuff like that. And fair enough if you're playing for fucking Rangers or Celtic, I'm so proud to be here. But when you're playing for Livingston and they look like they really, really give a shit, I kind of love that. And Jet, arguably, kind of, he seems to be happy he's here, but yeah, that's literally what Povey said. If he's not a top six SPL, number one striker for us. Overall tough afternoon. Josh Mullen made a difference, but yeah, get Ploppy starting. I think he deserves more of a shout.
Hashtag lines in the camp.
No one's ever repeated, ever.
Nah, I don't know where that's come from. I absolutely adore it. Thomas, what about yourself? What was your moment of the match?
I want to comment on how impressed I was with Wraith. I thought they looked really, really good. And I know a couple of you have mentioned it, but they look like a really solid team. I know they're in a good bit of form at the moment. Was it 4-1 or 5-1 they pumped them for and won a couple of weeks ago?
5-1. It was the Tuesday. It was the midweek before.
So, coming on a good bit of form, but I was really impressed with the way that they were moving the ball around. And in the first half, certainly, it didn't look like there was a massive golfing class, which there probably should be between the two sides. That being said, I was glad we kind of brought ourselves back into the game a wee bit more. I think we were much better second half. First half was dreadful. I was so bored watching that first half. And to be honest, the second half wasn't massively much more entertaining for me anyway. But we showed a bit more desire, and that, I think Povey mentioned that, like, the fitness really carried us through, and kind of we were able to show our quality a wee bit and find that space. And it's always good to see Ploppy score a goal. I'll just kind of echo the sentiments of everyone else. I think he's due a run up top. He's always impressed. He's grabbed a few goals, and he shows a lot of intelligence as a footballer. I think he makes the right movements, gets into the right space, and he really impressed me. So hopefully we'll start to see him getting into the side more, kind of for the rest of the season. But no, good to go through. Happy with that. Tough draw next, but let's pump the sheep.
Yeah, listening to everyone. I mean, I didn't watch the game. I know. Well, I had other more interesting things to do. From following it on, in particular, the Livingston Twitter. I mean, Thomas and I think everyone's touched on it that Wraith were really good. Povey sort of mentioned that it was similar to last season's game of Wraith, but from what I remember of that game against Wraith last season was Wraith tried for 20 minutes, they got a goal, that was it. Like, they just surrendered completely. 10 men behind the ball constantly. We were firing balls up to their defence. Nothing was sticking to Dykes. And I can't remember Wraith having any other chances. Whereas this Wraith Rovers team, looked like that they were playing a wee bit more silky football. They were on the ascendancy, in particular in the first half, from what I could see. Looking back at the highlights, obviously there was only about 20 seconds worth of highlights from Livingston's NASA satellite camera on the BBC. I thought Jack Fitzwater's goal, I thought he took it really well, and he's becoming a bit of a John Guthrie of... I don't really remember the Walsall fans saying, "Oh, this boy's pish," but we weren't that enamoured with him at the start of the season, but you can tell that he's getting a real sort of boost in confidence from playing, because that's the thing, he was in and out of the team. It was between him and Effie Ambrose, because Martindale hates having two players with a left footer at both sides of centre half. So yeah, I think he's been an upgrade on Effie Ambrose, in particular the second half of the season. He's still a wee bit raw, he's still a wee bit young, but he was probably my moment of the match. I think he was he's come on to a game recently. And yeah, another important goal in a cup competition, because he scored 2 against Ayr in the first knockout of the League Cup. Could be on our way to another final, boys, you never know. I will touch on Robbie McCrory, because obviously I wasn't watching the game. I seen Twitter going into meltdown saying it was a horrendous goal, and I was like, nah, it won't be as bad as what folk are saying. It's just because it's me, Robbie McCrory. Fuck me, man. What is he doing? I mean, fair enough, I think Owen touched on the wall. I think one of the players in particular, I think it might have been Sybil, completely shits it. And he's the one that breaks the wall. I think the only sort of defence is that McCrory's expecting it to be whipped in rather than a shot on goal, but it was pretty much a carbon copy of Dundee United's goal at Tannadice, if you remember that.
I was just about to say that, this isn't the first free kick he's let in like that, This is... that was carbon copy, as you say, and yeah, I can't believe you're defending him by trying to talk about the wall, nah, he's letting these absolute howlers in,
It was poor and 100%, but again, there could have been a wee bit more done in the wall, I think. Owen?
I think it was also because Lewis Vaughan scored a free kick against Dunfermline, and I think, as from what I heard, it was a carbon copy of the goal he scored against Dunfermline. So it's like, if you're analysing that match before you go and play, you analyse the last game that they played, and then you find out that same player has done exactly the same thing two games in a row, not even a week apart. You should be expecting that to be happening. If McCrory's standing centre of the goal, he's saved it. But he's standing closer to the fucking corner flag than he is to the fucking middle of the goal. But one thing that did concern me was their crossfield balls from the right-hand side out to the left-hand side. We were essentially playing 2 at the back. See if that Jamie Gullen had any more pace, or they had a player with actual pace on that left-hand side, we would have been 3-4 down by even 15, 20 minutes into the game. We would have been 3 or 4 down. Jamie Gullen was through on goal 3 times. Jack Fitzwater, fair enough to him, got back and covered it, because Gullen shat himself, basically. He was always looking for the cutback rather than taking a shot. But yeah, that really concerns me, is the fact that Devlin is now playing so far up to the point where it left that whole right-hand side of our defence, left-hand side of their attack, completely wide open. And they knew that. They knew that Devlin was going to be basically standing in the opposing 18-yard box.
It was concerning that was happening at the weekend. But I don't see that happening much more for the rest of the season. I don't see us playing like that every week in, week out. We were clearly trying to take the game to them a wee bit, which is fine. But I just can't see us doing that again with the games that we've got left. To be fair, it's been something that we've been banging on about for a while, is to try to get the wing backs higher up the park. We've been saying, let's get the boys further up, add their attacking threat. And you are going to get caught out. occasionally, but I just can't see us doing it constantly against a Rangers or a Celtic or a Hibs. Maybe against Aberdeen because they're shite, but aye. I was going to touch on McCrory, and this can probably be cut, but I think he's trying to be too clever. I think and it's something that goalkeepers do a lot, because they always, it's the same for free kicks, like more direct free kicks outside the box. It frustrates the hell out of me. They have this massive amount of space who, a lot of players can just put the ball into. They still need to kind of hit a good free kick to get it in, but they just leave so much space, and it was so obvious what he was going to do from the way that it was set up. So obvious that he was putting it in that corner. And fair play to him, he's like hit it well, but just
not that well.
No, but it's just back to basics, right? It's frustrating for me, but it seems to be a common theme with goalkeepers. So
with that risk of Devlin, he set up the Platnick goal. It was without that risk, we wouldn't have got the goal to get us through. So I agree with the points you say basically there. If we can cover that space, Devlin is lethal. Up there, I think. I know Owen, you say his delivery is not great in that, but he has set up a lot of opportunities for us by sort of being up there,
We are now joined by former midfield maestro of the Lions. He won the First Division title, was a part of the squad that finished third in the Premier League, went away for a bit only to reappear to bag another Amber Black Winners' Medal, winning the Third Division title in 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, by golly gosh, we've got him. It's Mr. Steve Tosh. How are we doing, Stevie? All right?
Yeah, very well. I've never heard that one before. Golly gosh, it's Steve Tosh. So new one. That was original.
It's got to go to Liam. He loves these things, getting these scripts going. You can see by his face, he loves it. Right, okay, we're going to go straight into our quick fire quiz. Okay, Steve, are you ready?
I'll try.
Okay, salt and sauce or salt and vinegar?
Salt and vinegar.
Almond Vale or Pataudry?
Almond Vale, I should say.
Wilson or Bingham?
Wilson.
Beer or cider?
Beer.
Leishman or Hay?
Hay.
Hay or Gary Boland?
Bo was my mate, but nah, Hay.
Lovell or Keno?
Keno was the top man.
Betting horses or betting on football?
No, I love to bet football, are we? So betting horses.
Beautiful. McFadden's or Gemmell's goals for Scotland?
Gemmell's.
Andrews or Rubio?
Oh, Big Marv.
Or McDonald's or KFC?
Oh, definitely McDonald's.
Spot on. Class. Okay, let's just get stuck into it. So you started your professional career with Arbroath before spells with St Johnstone and your hometown club Wraith Rovers. And whilst playing for the Rovers, you starred in a 4-0 win against Livingston at Almond And then Daddy Leishman got his checkbook out to sign you for the Lions pretty much immediately. So when did you learn about the move and how did it come about?
First of all, I thought it was 4-1. Didn't realise it was 4-0. So, I guess what happened was we played on the Saturday, and went obviously a great victory for us at Wraith, probably unexpected, and went back training the next week, and then played the following week if I remember right, and it wasn't until the following Thursday, so a week and a half later, we're in the dressing room at Stars Park on the Thursday morning, and Kenny Black, the assistant manager, had basically come in and told myself, Alec Burns and Marvin to stay behind. Which wasn't strange for myself, because I used to seemingly be in Jacko's or disco in Kirkcaldy every Wednesday night, and I was I'd been banned out the disco for about 3 years or 4 years, so I'm not sure how I was there, but when I seen that Marvin was obviously left behind, and we toasted Alec Burns, we sat in the dressing room, boys left for training, Peter came in and he basically just told us that we're told that a club had put in a bid for the three of us and that it had been accepted, but he couldn't tell us who it was, couldn't tell us when we'd find out, and basically was there anywhere we could go in the meantime, because he had to go and take training. So Yeah, he went to training. We went up to my house in Kirkcaldy, me, Marvin, and we, Alex, and we sat there for about 3 or 4 hours. We never had a clue where I was talking about, I wonder who it can be. So we had no clue whatsoever. And then we got the phone call about back at 2 in the afternoon to tell us to meet at Uphall at Houston House. I think we were meeting there at 4:30. So we probably left Kirkcaldy about back at 3, 3:30, headed across and headed to Houston Hall. Still weren't told who it was until we arrived at Houston House, and there was the bold leash with his JRU and car, and that was it. That was the first us realising. So then we headed, we followed leash across to Almond Vale. I believe it was because if Leash wasn't getting the 3 us, if Livingston weren't getting the 3 us, they weren't taking any of us, and they didn't want it to come out that it was been agreed because they thought then other clubs would come in, and you know, without putting myself down, they'd come in more for the likes of Big Marv or Alex, and the Wraith couldn't risk that. So yeah, it was the first us hearing was probably about 4:30 that afternoon.
Were you excited the prospect of joining Livingston, and can you see us flying towards promotion at that point?
Yeah, I guess excited that when a move comes on the cards, there's excitement and trepidation, worry, concern, you know, because you get used to being where you are. I was a Kirkcaldy boy. I hadn't moved out of Kirkcaldy, you know, when I played at Perth. Obviously, I just travelled that 30 minutes. So when Livingston come in for us, you know, we were very aware that what Livingston were looking to achieve, who they'd bought in the summer. So yeah, it was an exciting time, obviously, to join the football club. And my thought process was that I was joining the league champions to be. You know, I wasn't like, and I'm just saying it now, but I had a discussion with the chairman when I first originally joined, and there was some disturbing thought process that if we hadn't got promotion, you still got a 10% wage rise. And with all due respect, you can stick your wage rise if we don't get promotion, because if this team doesn't get promotion, there's something wrong. And I think the chairman thought I had about 2 or 3 heads, and he actually then took me aside and he said, we're then meant to get a larger percentage of your basic wage if we did get promotion. So he actually increased mine even further, because I guess he's seen somebody that that was maybe stupid by turning down money for nothing, but I just couldn't understand how we weren't going to win the league. So yeah, it was a good time to join Livy, and it was some fantastic times then for the next 18 months.
The season you joined would obviously be up there, one of the best ever at the club. But do any games in the First Division kind of stick out for you that you knew when the Premiership was only kind of a matter of time?
Probably no. It's strange because you play that many games. I guess the one that sticks out the most was the Championship winning game up in Inverness. And then the travel back down the road, that's probably blotted my mind for whatever I can remember prior to that. So, no, it was listen, I guess we just had a fantastic thought process. The 11 that I guess wasn't part of the Championship winning teams, but I guess going to Pittodrie and thumping them, the 6-1, 6-2 game, and then beating them as well, the Scottish Cup after a replay. But that wasn't much to do with the league campaign. The league campaign just seemed to go from week to week. We had our ups and downs. We got beat at times, but on a general rule of thumb, if we got beat one week, we knew we'd get back on the horse and probably win the week after. But I guess the one that sticks in mind, probably going up to Inverness. It was never an easy place to go to. Very good football club, very good football team. But you know, we went up there, and I think Ayr were playing in the Scottish Cup that day or something? And I think we won, and that won us the league that day. So no, that was a good trip, and it was probably as good. Well, looking at your faces, it didn't look cold enough, but it certainly was good for us on the way back down the road. I don't know if it was good enough.
You touched on the game at Inverness, which we clinched 3-2 away, with yourself having a goal bizarrely ruled out for offside. What was the game? What was the build-up like before the game? We've had some mental stories about Leash and Hay, and from your other teammates. Is there anything they did slightly differently before that game to get you up for it?
I don't know, is there? Again, you know, it's 2001? 2001, so
it would have been
20 years ago. As you can see, I'm fatter, balding. So the grey cells probably. I don't think so. If I remember right, we probably travelled up on the Friday night. We stayed at, I dare say we stayed at the King's Mills in Inverness, and probably went about our business the same as what we normally do. Again, some of the boys have maybe told you stories. I remember going back down the road more than what I remember coming up the road. So, truth is, I'd be telling a lie if I thought any preparations were any different. As I say, there's obviously stories there that people have potentially shared with you, but nothing that I can recollect.
Okay, we're going to go see if we can go back into memory lane again a wee bit more. So Davy Bingham and Barry Wilson told us stories of the end of season holiday that year. One about you feigning an injury with a moon boot to get preferential treatment in a bar, and another about Wilson being put to bed by 2 Spanish police before sneaking back out immediately.
That was
the man from. That was the year after, was it?
That was the year after. He thought he'd be. Baz isn't the bravest. He's my best mate. We still go away on holidays yet. The story about so at the end of the season, obviously we went to Magaluf. It was a bit of a riot. I remember we kind of travelled for 2 different airports, Edinburgh and obviously Glasgow, because the Ouija's just refused to travel through to Edinburgh full stop for anything, never mind. But I'm surprised it actually comes through for games at times. But I remember we arrived at the hotel in Palma Nova, I think it was, just round the corner, and we're just. That was when it was pesetas as well. I'm sure it was pesetas. And we're just walking round the pool, and Bingy was inside of me, and I nudged him right into the pool with all his gear on, his money, his passport, everything. Everything went in and knew. As you know, with Bingy, he's the most aggressive man you'll ever meet in your life, you know. And it was funny as hell because Bingy thought it was hilarious that I'd pushed him in the pool, but he'd held these 2 bottles of beer up. So he had to his eye. I never spilt a drop. Then he realised that he had every single bit of money he took with him in his pocket, and he had his passport as well. So you can imagine then he came out and he wasn't too happy. But with regards to the moon boot, what had actually happened is we'd played Clyde the last game of the season. I think they beat us maybe. I think we were still pissed for earlier on that week. And Barry got injured. Barry actually got injured. No, me. Barry got injured, and we were winding him up that he wasn't going to get. So the physio who went with us, Michael McBride, stuck him on, as you say, one of the moon boots, and we travelled, and we got to the hotel, and we got mangled in one day, and it was. I'm an early riser. I'd got up about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'd started drinking down at the pool, and then Bingy got up next and he joined me, and then the boys started to come up. So by the time some of them got up at lunchtime, me and wee Bingy we had a charge on. So we went to a few bars and meant to get something to eat because they were just starting out. By this time me and Bingy was 6 sheets to the wind. So they put us in a taxi home. So me and Bingy went back to the hotel, seemed like to sleep it off. We went into the same room, the same bed. We done spoons. And within 5 minutes, we were back up, and I spotted Barry's moon boot because I was sharing with Marvin, which was a joy. Marv doesn't drink, and I'm just the worst ever. And it's Barry and Bingy, and so I thought it would be hilarious to wear this moon boot. And me and Bingy then decided to go and try and find them, and we end up in a what was it? Was it the Winning Line or something it's called? It's a bookies in Magaluf. Two degenerate gamblers together are pissed, isn't it? A good make-up. So we went in and it was busy. It was really, really busy. So I had this moon boot on and all felt sorry for us. So they created space at a table. They served us all afternoon our drink table service. We got the slips sent across so we could put our bets on. We never had to do a bit. And then about 4 hours later, got up, I took the moon boot off and we walked out the door like nothing else had happened. So we got called a few names in. And obviously Barry was panicking more because his moon boot that he should have been wearing and he was meant to take back to the football club was left in a bar and could maybe still possibly be in the same bar in Magaluf somewhere. So yeah, that was a moon boot story. So myself and David were a bit worse for wear.
So the following season was our first in the top flight in Scotland, and we had a turnover of players that seemed to reach kind of the hundreds. Was there any that came in pre-season that you saw and immediately thought, that guy's a player?
Keno, best player, one of the best players I've ever played with. Keno was just we'd had David Fernandez already, and David was just amazing. You know, you had Rubio, and we had, I know it would have been David and Javi Sanchez Broto was signed, went out for Airdrie the season before. And then Branquan had come in again, fantastic, great pro. You know, we had some good additions, you know, had some bad ones as well, but Keno for me, and you know, playing in my position, we're not the same type of players, we're certainly a bit different, but playing in that same position, somebody that you would potentially was going to take my place, I didn't care. I just seen this boy in training, I just thought, wow, absolute wow. And he was a fantastic guy as well, and he was the one for me. I done a thing recently, I think, on a medium like this, where it was asking my best ever players I played with. Keno was in there 100%. He had something that Livingston's probably never had since and never will have again. There've been people that's maybe thought about that liked him, but this guy could keep up. As I say, this guy used to be able to keep the ball in a phone box. That's how good he was. You know, he just wouldn't give it away. His legs hadn't went. He was a great athlete, and I'd say Keno. But the rest of them, I guess the greatest thing about the likes of Keno and some of these guys, David that come in and some of the other ones, is they just bought into the ethos and the thought process straight away. You know, there was no prima donnas, and anyone that come in that was thought they were maybe go a bit prima donna were soon knocked down to size. And I can honestly say that year and at that football club was something unique and special, that everybody was hoping that we're going to win on a Saturday, whether you're playing or not. And that's, believe it or not, you will speak to a lot of people, and a lot of people say that happens all the time. No, it doesn't. There's always people that are sitting up the stands hoping to get their place back, hoping for a bad performance. No hoping for a bad performance. I don't think anybody, but hoping that they get their place back however they can get it. With that Livingston team, we just wanted to win, and we all fought for each other. And I think that's why the club, the season after, even though you won the cup, I don't think the club was ever the same again. You know, I really do think that year was probably, you know, and I take my hat off to Davey and what they're doing this year. But no, that 2002, 2003 season, 2001, 2002, I think it was, it was just something amazing. It was absolutely brilliant, and it still gives me great pleasure yet that I was obviously part of that.
I mean, touching on that season, I mean, we've discussed it loads of times amongst ourselves and loads of times with a couple of your ex-teammates. I mean, we had 4 wins against Hearts, beat Rangers, held Celtic to a 0-0 draw at home. But again, like similar to the question before, like, was there any game in that season that you've won and you thought, right, relegation's nowhere near, we're absolutely smashing this and we're going to try and just finish as high as we can?
I guess we started this. The Hearts story is a great story, isn't it? Did anyone tell you about the Hearts story? No, Gary Locke. Gary Locke bought us drinks in Magaluf because he claimed that was going to be 4 easy bonuses a year after. He was told in non-certain terms when we bet him that last game of the season, and we'd had 4. He wasn't bought a drink back, put it that way, you know. So, again, first game of the season to beat Hearts, you know, and we just kept runs going. We just, and again, going back to the season before, whatever blips we had, we just seemed to, again, pick it up again. One of the ones that sticks in my mind was the 3-2 defeat at Parkhead on Boxing Day, when Henrik scored in the last minute. And, you know, I think the fact, and I know folk will say, is he mental that he's talking about defeat? But the fact that we went to Parkhead and were everybody as good as them that day. I know Valharen got sent off with about 10 minutes to go, and the fact that it just summed us up that year, that we weren't sitting in waiting on a 2-2 draw. We were going for a 3-2 win, and that's how we got caught, you know. And it was just, again, I keep saying, for a teamwork and thought process, it was great. I think other ones that stick in my mind is defeats again. Aberdeen 3-0, third last game of the season. Got back on the bus. Aberdeen, I was giving a couple of crates of beer. It looked like that was just going to finish in fourth. And we, you know, I remember Leash pulled the bus into Stonehaven and stopped at Stonehaven for about an hour. And again, masterstroke in the sense of he just basically told us, you've over exceeded our expectations, you've been great, have a drink on me. We did for an hour. I think the Aberdeen fans that were in the pub that day must have been thinking, what the hell's going on here? You've just been thumped 3-0. We came down the road and we went back into training on Monday and we realised that they had Rangers and Celtic to play. We had Dunfermline and Hearts, so I'll tell you what we'll do. We're 5 points behind. We'll take it into the second last week of the season. We thumped Dunfermline, I think 4-1 or something like that at Almond Vale. Rangers beat Aberdeen. We know Rangers aren't going to do Aberdeen any favours, isn't it? So all of a sudden we're 2 points behind going into the last game, and we go to Tynecastle. And again, for boys like yourselves that were probably going to the games at the time, and it just must have been great. You go that last game and it's like a cup final, and we not, again, without being funny, we never let you down. We never let you down that for 2 years in a row, and we win, and you come off and you hear that Sean Maloney scored and you finish third. And we all went out in Edinburgh that night. It was a great night because I think we all realised that was the end. And so it was 2 days later when we all went into Almond Vale, and it was like the Green Mile when you got called along to the dressing room and the manager's room and told what the story was. And majority of us knew what was going to be happening because we weren't wet behind the ears. But it was just sad. It was sad the way sad for the likes of myself that you didn't get a chance, because that would have been the ideal time. I know we'll talk about when I came back, but I wasn't the same player when I came back. It wasn't the same club when I came back. So, that was when we should have been given that luxury of saying goodbye to fans that supported us through. The words are thick and thin, but hadn't been very, very much of that. But, we should have been able to get the accolades and adulation of the fans that we probably quite rightly deserved, and we should have been able to pay that back to you guys as well for the support we'd received. And I guess that was probably, and I've said it to Leish's face, it was the only thing that stuck in my throat when I left Livingston, if I'm being honest.
At the end of that season, you moved on to Falkirk, so like you said, obviously it was a bit of a Green Mile moment of just getting your name called and finding out whether or not you were staying or going. But I mean, considering that you were such a massive part of getting us from the First Division up to the Premier League and finishing third, which is just unheard of. I mean, it's essentially winning the league for the other teams in the league. So we just a bit miffed that you never had the chance to represent us in Europe and sort of see how, like, if we could go another stage further. Like, was that just a bit of a disappointment to leave in that thing?
No, because I kind of, so basically, and Leish could tell you differently, but if you look at both the whites of our eyes, you'll know what one's telling the truth and what one's not. But I was offered a 2-year contract and I accepted it. And then my agent had phoned me and I says, no problem, never asked for any more money. I've never been like that. I was happy where I was. I was loving my life at the time. Just before I joined Livingston, my ex-wife had given birth to her daughter. So I was in a good place. And then I remember it was at New Year. We're heading across, in fact, I actually think it was New Year's Day. We're heading across the Forth Road Bridge. And I got a phone call from my agent basically saying that the 2-year deal was now a 1-year deal. And I'd said, well, look, I'm not taking a 1-year deal. I was still young enough at the time where I thought a 2-year deal was, I was worthy of it, and I didn't understand as to why it had been taken off the table. And then so my agent went back and we never heard nothing. And then I always remember we went away to Carnoustie on one of our trips. We went away to Carnoustie and we ended up in Davy Hay and Leish's suite on the top floor of the hotel, and it was great, the camaraderie and that. So we're all sitting, we're having a drink, and I think it was George McNeil, the sprint coach, asked me why I hadn't signed my new contract, and I basically said, well, as far as I know, it's not on the table and I'm not signing a 1-year deal. And Davy Hay turned and said, so what's the problem, Steve? And I said, well, it was maybe 2-year, Davy. Davy says, right, if I offer you a 2-year deal just now, will you accept? Aye, of course I would. Never heard nothing again until I went into the office the Tuesday after that Sunday game to be told that the deal was no longer, there was no deal on the table, and that I was basically leaving the football club. And as I say, I knew from, I think it was March, we were away at Carnoustie, or say February, March. I knew then that it was never going to come, but I'd like to think that I didn't change my attitude or my application, and it still meant as much to me as to the guys that were going to be staying. And it was, as I say, that was the only thing that I could really say was disappointing. And no to the club, just Leash being Leash. Leash a good guy, but Leash is no backbone. Wouldn't want to. Couldn't face anybody up in office. He wouldn't want to fight with you. He wants to be everybody's pal. So, hence the reason it was a lot easier for him to. Again, it was a lot easier for Leash to release us on the Tuesday after the game, because if he'd released us, if he'd told you that myself, David Bingham, and certain others were getting let go at the end of the season 6-7 weeks before the season finished, I dare say there would have been a bit of pressure on from fans. So, but that was a true story. It wasn't like I left. It wasn't like I was. And going back to the season after, was I disappointed? No, particularly. I'm the type of guy that takes things and rolls with it. The bottom line is, I knew the minute I walked out the door at Almondvale that I wasn't going to be playing in the European game. So why worry about it? I just couldn't concern myself about it. So I still wanted them to do well. I still had obviously friends at the football club, but no, I didn't. I've never looked back and thought, I wish I'd done this or I wish I'd done that. I like to think I am who I am, and that's why I'd like to think that I'm respected from. I tend to be respected by the team, the fans of the teams I play for, but I would be hated by the fans of the teams that I play against. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I am who I am, and I never changed it in my football career, and I'm certainly not going to change it now. Hence the reason I told you it's an open book.
You left us to join Falkirk briefly, and you had a really successful stint up in Aberdeen, and then you sort of shocked the Scottish footballing world, I guess, by joining Gretna, who were in the third division, I think, at the time.
They were,
who themselves, they would go on a rapid rise through the leagues as well. Scottish Cup final, UEFA Cup appearance. Then after, you moved to Queen of the South, another cup final, another European appearance. So in terms of those sort of two, like the journeys for the two teams were completely different. Gretna sort of a wee bit more like Livingston, where they were sort of financially backed. But I mean, playing in sort of two cup finals, relatively close to each other. Obviously, it was unfortunate that you went on to lose them both. But what was that like, sort of representing, quote, wee teams essentially in the biggest stage in Scottish football?
Well, the best bit to tell you to start with, we'll go through a couple of things. The best thing to tell you is when we're on our golf holidays, and no, he gets to go with us now, but Barry Wilson's dad, Bobby, used to come with us, and I used to wind Bobby up that I've been in 3 semi-finals. I've made 2 finals and one that I got beaten, and Barry was in the team that I got beaten. And Barry's played in a few other semis when they've got beaten, so, Bobby doesn't take it too well with regards to that. So, I guess the 2 playing the semi-final with Livingston and get, let's be honest, we got thumped that day 3-0 by a very good Hibs team. No, there wasn't there's no other way to talk about it. It wasn't like we didn't do ourselves proud. We just were up against a better team in the day. So I guess the next semi-final I played Dundee with Gretna. Very much a likeness. We were they were a good first division team, but we were champions elect to the second division at the time. We beat them 3-0, ironically enough, and then again with Queen of the South to go and beat Aberdeen, probably in one of the greatest semi-finals of all time. And then you go into the finals, I think I was 34 and 33, 34 and 36 or something at the time. So you never expect to make these. I never had a great record apart from the time when we got to the semi-11s, so it wasn't something that I used to strive for. I think you used to think, well, if we got there, great. But I also look upon myself as a winner in both finals. Going back to the 11s and finishing third in the league, it's like winning the league. We played Hearts, who I think had finished second that year in the Premier League or whatever, but we played Hearts and we took them at penalty kicks. We played Rangers 2 years later, who'd played in the UEFA Cup final 10 days beforehand against Zenit St. Petersburg, and we lost 3-2. Let's be honest, you play the games 100 times over, we're never taking Hearts to penalties again, and we're never getting beat just 3-2. So we came off there feeling like winners. We've not got the winners' medals to show for it, but, there are big occasions. I scored in the goal. I scored the goal against Rangers to get Queens back in the game. And again, the way I see it, for my son, for my daughter, family members, and, I guess a wee bit for myself, but know that you look at it, but grandkids further down. That's history book stuff. You know, I'm a boy for a council estate in Kirkcaldy that played with boys that were probably everybody as good as me, if no better. But I was lucky enough to, as you say, playing 2 Scottish Cup finals, 7 league winners' medals, scored a goal, played in Europe, played against some of the best players that the world's even produced. Never mind just so. I look upon everything as a plus and a bonus. You know, so fantastic occasions. 2 different occasions. Gretna, Brooks was fantastic. Really nice guy. The manager was a pillock, an absolute pillock. You know, made us wear kilts. We had 5 of the starting lineup were English, and they had to wear kilts to the cup final. So nothing against getting your own teams up, their backs up straight away. You know, and he was just a clown there, man, standing there in the sidelines with his full regalia on. As we honestly, we got
thing.
They played the lot. We got kilts. Swearing it, we got kilts, brand new kilts, Gretna tartan, beautiful kilts. I wore it from the hotel. I got into the ground, I took it off, and I put it. It's never seen the cold light of day again. You know, and it just typical. We went out in Glasgow at night, and we were stopping him getting into bars because we didn't want to be associated with him. I swear on that. We went out in Glasgow at night, and he's phoning some of the players where he is. We're in the social, and I was like, didn't tell him. Stand outside with his kilt still on and he played and that, and some fans were like, is that your manager? And we're like, it's fuck all to do with us, by the way, nothing to do with us, you know. So man was a clown, but you know, for Gretna itself, what an achievement. Fantastic, loved that. But Queen of the South was something special because Dumfries, you know, it's history. There's a football club there, and just I stayed in there. When I moved to Aberdeen to Gretna, I went and bought a house in Dumfries, and obviously I moved in there. So then to go for Gretna, take Queens, and to then take, you know, so I revelled in everything that they were doing, the lead up to the cup final and everything that went with it, because obviously, you know, my daughter was at school by then, so taking her to school and you were, you know, it was something special seeing it firsthand, and it was a great occasion, as I say. Six of us actually went to the UEFA Cup final the Wednesday before. 6 of us went down to Manchester. So I'll not tell you what 6. Only 3 of us had tickets, and I was one of them. Put it that way. So, and then we played them 10 days later. But no, great occasions, brilliant. And as you say, you know, for Livy fans, and I don't know if you've got to Europe, for the Queen of the South fans in particular, they thought that managed to go on that one trip to Denmark. I take my hat off to them. That's a memory that they'll have forevermore.
No, 100%. I mean, briefly, you mentioned that you scored in the Queen of the South final. Are you the only player in Scottish Cup history to score with your Boz in a cup final?
So I believe a lot of players have probably scored with their Boz now after a cup final, but I think I'm the one. So I think, what is it they say? It's come off some part of his anatomy. So, yeah. It's one of the things, like, you know, we're 2-0 down at half time, and Chiz came in, and basically Chiz was a fantastic manager and just said, even if we get beat 10-0 the day, you will not have let me down, but you're letting yourselves down. You're letting people down that haven't seen you all season. You're better than that. Go out the second half. Don't lose the second half. Thought process, right? No, you come off 2-0. You know, you're disappointed. You get your medal. I was luckier than some of the rest of them because I'd played in a final before, so I'd probably experienced the low of losing, even though, as I say, you felt like winning. So I'd experienced going into the dressing room or stand on the pitch, get your medal, watching other clubs. So I'm probably more ready for it than the rest. But that second half, or that 8 minutes of the second half, and it'll live with me forevermore. And I've always said this, and I'll say it again. I've never ever wanted to be used, guys. I've never ever wanted to be a fan rather than a player. I've always wanted to be the player rather than the fan. I would have think, get my goal, but there's something I would, if I could have just swapped it for 2 seconds to be in that crowd when Jimmy's header went in, I just couldn't imagine what that must have been like. You know, that some of these guys and girls that were at the game actually missed both goals because they went for a pee and a pie, and by the time they come back, they never thought we'd be back to 2-2. I could just imagine somebody walking down the stairs at Hampden half pissed and looking up at the scoreboard and seeing it saying 2-2 must have thought their eyes were playing tricks on them because we did. We ran out of steam. We were done in. We hadn't played. Everybody says, but Rangers had these games. We hadn't played for over a month. It just, it's like your first game of pre-season. You know what you want to do. Your legs are so much there, but I think adrenaline got us through for the first bit. But no, it was a fantastic occasion. Just wasn't it to be, but I say I think for fans' experiences and stuff like that 8 minutes in the second half must have been something special for the Queen's fans.
Coming back to when you returned to Livingston, so in January 2010, it was announced that you and Joe Hamill were doing the old switcheroo, with Joe leaving Livingston to go on loan to Queen's, and then we were getting yourself in as pretty much a direct replacement. Obviously, that's probably not unusual in football, but like, how did that situation come about? Like, was it Livingston that approached you, or was it Queen's that approached Joe, and then you said, "Oh, I'll go to Livingston" as a sort of swap? So how did that move sort of come about?
Listen, it should never have come about. I Gary was my roommate. Me and Gary actually had a sharing a horse together and everything like that. We were really pally, and he done me a favour. He seen I was at rock bottom. I'd broke my leg in September, I think, against Rangers, and I'd actually been told that I'd never play again. And I wasn't accepting it. I never told anybody. The surgeon says you're done. So I went away and I basically took it on the chin, kept it quiet. Went through the leg break. The leg break wasn't a bad thing. That was just 6 to 8 weeks. It was my ankle ligament. You've got the ligament. You've got your bone sticking, your ligament sticking to the bone either side. Mine had come off one side, stuck on the other side, and yeah, it was pretty horrific. But I was just my character. I decided that I wasn't going to let football retire me. I was going to retire for football. So I remember I got my Stuckey off. After about 8 weeks, I started doing a bit of training, and honestly, I was running like Kaiser Soze. You've never seen nothing like this. It was just, I had the worst limp ever, and we actually came up to. I was basically we were training, and if it was 9 versus 9, Chiz would put me in as extra man 10, so I was playing for either team. And just me, I was just trying my hardest, running about, but I had the worst limp ever. And we came up, and we had a bounce game against Livy at the Astro at Almond Vale, and Chiz put me on with about 10 minutes to go, and he took me to the side. He says, "Look, I can't play you. You can't. You're trying, but you can't get about the part. You can't do this." And he says, "But I've spoke." Gary says he wants you. Gary says that he would take you because he wants just a wee bit of experience in the middle part with, I think, Davy Sinclair, and Foxy was quite young. I think Foxy had played a few games, but again, Foxy was younger at the likes of Hearts, but he never really played much games and that, so he just wanted a bit of experience. And I don't know if there was an issue with Joe or whatever it was, and I didn't know Joe, so I'm not going to say, but I think Joe was then used. I don't know if Chiz said, "Well, we'll take Joe Hammer," but I really don't know the circumstance. But I spoke to Gary and I says, "Look, Gary, he says, look, bottom line, Gary actually says to me, stand in the centre circle and just direct them. He says, they'll do all your running for you. He says, I just want you in there to basically be my guy on the park." No, he's snitched, but I mean, like, his older pro, because Robbie was there, but Robbie's quieter. Robbie just goes and does his stuff, big hammy. And I says, right, no bother. And I remember coming up, I was subbed the first game on a Tuesday night, and I remember getting stuck on, and I made a run into a box, and I think I just about scored, and I thought, wow. And I've got to be honest, the physio at the time was a South African guy. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have just walked out after a couple of weeks. His rehab was just out of this world. I think he'd previously worked with a rugby team or whatever in South Africa, and he'd seen these type of injuries, and I'd go in an hour before training every day, stay up after training and just work on and stuff. And I scored a goal at Albion Rovers at Clifton Hill, and it was just special for me because what people didn't realise is to have been told that you weren't going to play again, something that you love and you cherish, and then for my last goal to be against Albion, that didn't matter to me. sorted out some demons and some concerns that I was going to have. And, I played to the end of the season, and obviously we won the league. I won the league comfortably without myself. I wasn't any bearing thing on that league matter, because they were such a good team and such good players. Young Andy was coming through and that, but it was nice. It was nice for me, and it couldn't have happened at a nicer club as well. Queens were special to me because I enjoyed the last 2 or 3 years, but I guess to come back at Livy and thankfully win it, because it then didn't tarnish possibly anything that I'd done beforehand. So it was nice to come back.
Yeah. You sort of touched on it earlier when you mentioned the sort of difference between the first time you were at Livingston and the second. It's amazing to think that there was actually only 8 years between you leaving the club, finishing third in the SPL, to you coming back and we were in the third division. Like, fair enough, it was because we were demoted because of financial issues, but how did it feel sort of walking through the doors at Almondvale again? Not much has sort of changed in terms of like the layout or whatever of the club, but did it feel like a completely different club?
I just walked in and said, "The king is back, long live the king," so that was it. I'm joking. I guess for me it was easy because I couldn't lose. The fans were going to take to me straight away because here's Stevie Tosh coming back that, played in the team that finished third, and again, I guess it was lucky for me as well because it wasn't like my career had maybe diminished since I left Livingston. If anything, as you say, I'd went on and I still played with Aberdeen, a couple of Scottish Cup finals, league winners with the likes of Gretna, etc. So it wasn't like the fans were probably thinking, well, we're getting a Diddy back, So no, it was fine. You'd go in and, we still had certain people at the football club that were still there through the office staff. The fans people were 8 years older, but there was still a lot of Livingston fans are still Livingston fans that probably when I was first playing at that time, so obviously they're changed now, there's the younger generation and stuff, but it was easy to come back. Bobo, as I say, was my roommate. I knew Big Scotty Patterson. I played with Big Scotty at Gretna. The dressing room, Hammy, Robbie, the vast majority would take to me. I'm the type of guy I am. There was a few that maybe their noses was put with joint. I think the goalkeeper had a bit of chip on his shoulder. I think he thought he was the top banana, Mackenzie, but he got told otherwise, So, but it was great because the younger generation were wanting to learn, and it was great, the camaraderie. It wasn't the same camaraderie as when I was there the first time because that first time we didn't have very many young players. It was all, our camaraderie the first time was great because the vast majority of us were all of that sort of mid to late 20s with wives and girlfriends and family, and you created your camaraderie like that. Whereas the next time, it was great for me because I was at the twilight of my career, so playing with your Andys, Davy Sinclair's, we had Cammy, forget young Cammy's name that played at centre back. You had the Jacobs brothers and that. So it was great. It was great seeing their enthusiasm and maybe educating them a wee bit, just to a wee bit show the will to win. And it was nice to come back. It was great to be part of it. As I say, I'd like to think 90%, 95% were happy. I dare say I was getting a couple of percent, 5% it was maybe it's their dress room. And when you've got a larger than life character like myself coming in, who, as I say, had history on his side, some folk aren't particularly keen on that, but we didn't fall out, we just didn't fall in.
You mentioned a few times your friendship with Gary Boland, being his roommate and stuff. We absolutely love Gary Boland. Like, he's if we could all choose a person to have on, he's just such an elusive guy to get a hold of. So have you got any good Gary Boland stories from his playing days or his days as a manager? Have you got anything that you could share that wouldn't get him in trouble?
I know Bobo when we were young guys and we both played. He was at Dundee United and he was a top banana when he were 14. We all played before the UEFA Cup games, and Bobo used to boot the ball. Bobo could boot the ball about 50 yards away and score because he kicked it high. And the goalies were that wee. So I know Bobo said, I've been with Bobo when he's broke his foot for kicking stuff and stuff like that. I've got some. Yeah, Gary's brilliant. You all love him because if you tell him that you didn't love him, he'll take every one of these at the same time out the back and thump every single one of these. So he's an aggressive man, but he's a great. Honestly, he's a great guy. He's me and him. I think we got on because we have a laugh. We say it as it is, but stories I've got about Gary, I can't tell you now. We owned the horse together. We used to go, here, there, and everywhere, and watch your horse. It wasn't very good. It was, in fact, the horse was probably as fast as me and Bobo. That's probably the best way to describe the horse. So, but no, I hope he does. It's hard for him just now being the manager of Cowdenbeath, but fingers crossed things will pick up after COVID. But Barry, Gary, Bingy used to go golfing with Bingy and that. I've not heard from David for such a bit. I've not really seen him since the funeral of Elaine. It was the kit woman at Livingston were across at her funeral. So, we all drift apart, still keep in touch with Big Marv. Marv, Gary and Barry are probably the three that I keep in touch with more than the rest. But no, Amazing. Great times.
I think Barry Wilson described bowling as a guy who would kick his own gran, which I just found unbelievable.
Tasmanian devil, when he gets worse with drink. There's only so many. I'll give you one story. We're out one time at Christmas night out Sauchiehall Street. I was out with Aberdeen. Bobo was there with Dundee United and St Mirren were out. And the only reason I know St Mirren were out was because I needed a help for a St Mirren player to calm Gary down. Because we were sitting in this bar. He can't drink soup for the size of him. He can't drink soup, right? And he comes across and I'm sitting with a couple of Aberdeen boys and Scott Booth, who's one of the nicest guys you ever meet, Boothie. So plausible. Scott Booth turns and says to Gary, Hi Gary, how's you? And Gary the eyes just went, he says, I fucking hate you. And I'm like, oh, no. And Boothie thinks he's joking, and I know he's no joking. I know, and I'm like, Gary, calm down, man. But I hate him. He's sitting next to me by this time. He's like, I hate him. And I'm like, no. And I had to go and tap Big Mixu part line because Mixu knows I'm well. I had to tap Big Mixu. I says, Mixu, you're going to need this as a favour, because Boothie's now trying to reason with Gary by saying, but Gary, why Gary? And I'm like, no, just leave it. Just leave it, Boothie. Don't say a thing. It's just making it. No, I'm not making it worse. I'm just trying to understand. I'm thinking, nah, because if Gary gets started, he's go clear a room. See later on, about half an hour later, me and Mixer calms him down. We takes him aside. We're sitting with a drink. He just starts laughing. He says, I didn't hate him. I'm like, poor Boothie's like that in the corner. Boothie's like a shit and dog. He couldn't have done nothing. But I think Boothie went home about half an hour later. So, someone is Gary. Oh. Yeah, we've had a few good nights out.
Oh, that's amazing. So you said earlier that you didn't play a big role, but you did. You played a big role in us clinching the third division that year. But I remember there being like a series of games that we could have won it, but for some reason it just didn't quite happen. Like I think all we had to do was draw against Forfar and they beat us, and then we had to win against Berwick away. I think you scored a penalty that night actually, and then we drew in the last minute. And then it came down to Roddy McKenzie, the main banana, for saving a last minute penalty kick to get the draw that we needed to get the title over the line. But what was that like, those sort of games that you were like, right, all we need is this, and then it just, something would happen and it just wasn't like happening? Did you think, fuck,
I don't know, I couldn't remember. I can't even remember scoring against Berwick there. There you go. I thought I'd only scored one goal when I come back. I remember the goal against Albion Rovers. I played a 1-2 in the edge of the box. But listen, it's that side was the hardest bit. It was even recently with Rangers. The hardest bit side was just getting over the line. Easiest bit's getting it. And again, that's why champions are champions. Again, I guess from a player's perspective, it doesn't matter when you win it, as long as you win it. It's normally fans that start to panic a lot more than the players. Because I guess you boys are waiting for your championship party, and every week, and then you think, oh no, what's happening? So I guess from a player's perspective, the bottom line is we got ourselves in a position because we're the best team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we knew we were the best team in the league, so we knew it was inevitable and it was going to happen at some point. It probably went on slightly longer than what we wanted to go on, but at the same time, I don't think we're ever concerned. Unfortunately, concerns, as I say, come from potentially the fans, at least to the sideline. The sideline leads on to the players, and the players then start to panic, out each other, and mistakes happen. You know, I think again going back to the age level, taking out me, Robbie, Roddy McKenzie, even and Jim Hart. When you take us out the team, the age was really young. You know, with the left back, Jason Talbot.
Yeah.
Jason probably got sent off every week when we're trying to win it, right? And I've known Jason, but you know, it's just it's these kids are at that age. These kids, all they wanted to do, all they'd done was play football, and I guess we knew we'd get them there. I didn't realise it took so long. I just had this understanding in my head that we won it probably with quite a bit to spare. And I can't even remember Roddy saying it, you know, and Roddy's a good lad. I'm only laughing and joking earlier on, but, you know, and I mean, he is a good lad. That just mean him went a wee bit like that. That's what happens. But I didn't remember him saving, again, going back to that, didn't remember him saving the penalty or anything like that. I guess, selfishly, from my perspective, my thought was just all about getting games under my belt at that time, and no games that I knew was going to get me games the next season, but just it allowed me to finish my career, you know, and it allowed me to finish it with a winner's medal as well. And as I say, I maybe should have done my homework and realised, but I didn't realise it took us so long. I remember more truthfully about games in 2001, 2002. What I ever remember about the games with the third division, and that's no been any disrespectful to when I came back or anything like that. I just think that, as I say, that I had an ulterior motive when I got not to get back, but when I was going to get game time. And I guess your brain tells you the better things in life, and I guess I remember a lot of the games within that period, as I say, the first period rather than the second period.
Just before we get your five-a-side team, just got sort of one last question. You mentioned again that the squad was a mixture of experienced players like yourself, like Roddy, Robbie Winters, Danny Griffin, and then had a mixture of young talent like Andy Halliday, Jacobs, Rafa De Vita that was probably his breakthrough season. Mark McNulty started to come through a wee bit. So, was there any player in particular that you enjoyed playing with that year, like young or experienced?
Andy was daft as a brush. Absolute daft as a brush. Fantastic guy. Just brilliant. Used to go onto the training park, you know, and this is a guy that's went on it and, you know, he's played at the highest level, and he used to call me Javi, and I had to call him Robin or something like that. He just made up names of the best players in the world, and that's who we were that particular day. So you'd be walking across the training park, and he'd tap you on the shoulder, and he was running everywhere. Right, Javi, you're in my team today, and you're like, he's like, call me Argent, I'm going to be Argent Robin today. And he just, honestly, the boy was brilliant, just absolutely fantastic. And I tell you what I liked about Andy, Andy's adapted his game as he's got older, and he reminds me a bit of Scott Brown and that, you know, and stuff. But I loved Andy the first time when he was there, because you could play Andy left back, you could play him left midfield, you could play him centre forward. Never ever did I see him going to be a centre midfielder. But it just shows how his game's adapted. You know, you're talking Andy Halliday would play up front and you guarantee goals. David Sinclair, I like playing with young David, because I like playing. He was a young boy coming through in the middle of the park and probably didn't get as much game time as he deserved, probably because boys like myself would maybe come back. Young Keegan Jacobs, who again I expected actually to do better things. I'm actually surprised that he never went and achieved as much as what I thought he potentially could have went and done. And McNulty, as you say, wee Sparky, apart from being a Hibs fan, he was a good lad.
Amazing. So yeah, what we usually do is sort of finish up on your dream five-a-side made up of ex-Livy teammates. So who have you got in your team and why?
Okay, I guess this is a new one to me. I guess goalkeeper. So the goalkeepers I played with was Neil Alexander, we had Javier, with Nick Culkin, and I guess Roddy at the tail end. I need to go with Javier. I need to go with Broto. You know, I think Neely runs him really close. But I just think Broto had something about him, his delivery and his technique. And again, I better watch what I'm going to do. It's probably going to be a Spanish 5 rather than anything else. So, but I would need. I think Javi would just pip Neely Alexander. Big ego as well. So, but no, ego never really played because it was Neely was playing that year, and then Neely obviously left. I think he went to Cardiff, didn't he? And we brought in Broto. Nick Culkin come up from you. So yeah, I'll go with Broto. I guess I better play my big car mate that must be due me a small fortune in petrol money. I'll play Big Marv. Potentially the worst player ever on the ball, but I joined Wraith Rovers. Marvin had no long come across for Trinidad, and travelled with me when we went to Livy. Got him Queen of South later on in my career. I still speak to him yet, still keep up with him yet, still see him in Kirkcaldy. Great guy, great player, fantastic attitude, great teammate, fans' favourite. The size of him, he's a bit of a colossus. So if I'm only playing one at the back in a 5-a-side team, I think probably I need to be Marvin. And I guess the rest are now difficult. So I've got to go Barry. Barry's my best mate. Before have you had Barry on this show?
Yeah.
What was Barry's 5-a-side team?
I don't think you were in it, so
exactly. He can absolutely lick it. Thinks he's getting my 5-a-side team now. He can absolutely bite. In fact, I'm right on him after this. You know what I mean? If I pick Barry and we're not going to get much defending our way, Barry was funny. Barry just used to, honestly, Barry would run up to me and during a game he'd say, the left back says he's going to kick me the next time I get it, or somebody's just kicked me, can you kick them back for me? And I used to go and do it. That's what made it worse. I used to make games with suspension and get fined for kicking Barry's. But listen, all joking aside, I'd need to have Keno in it because I think Keno was probably the most technical player I've played with. I need to have Fernandes in it because 100%. David, how can you not have David in it? So I guess that leaves me with one other player. Wilson's out the team because he's a dick.
You were on his bench, I think. He said you'd be first sub. I remember him saying that.
Well, guess what? I'm not having any subs. I guess, listen, me and the wee man fell out a few years ago and we've no spoke since, which isn't fantastically great, and it's nothing to do with this, but I guess Bingy. Me and Bingy we were really close and stuff, and just certain things have happened within life, blah blah blah. But still just a fantastic player. An absolute fantastic player. Joy to play with, nightmare to play against. You could play Bingy. I guess what Bingy, Bingy's kind of like Barry, but Bingy would maybe be a wee bit more industrious. But Bitham could play middle, they could play midfield, they could play up front. But no, I guess just for what he'd done at Livingston and what type of guy he is, I think my 5 would probably be Broto, Marvin, Keno, Bingy, and Fernandes.
Some team. That is some team, by the way. Hello and welcome back to the Scotland Football Phone-In with myself, Ben Johnson. We're discussing the global climate crisis this evening on the show, and as always, we want you guys to get in touch, to tell us how that's going to affect the old firm. So we have wee JP on the line. What do you want to say, JP?
Hi, hello. I'm a Celtic man.
born and raised in Edinburgh, just away from Easter Road. The global climate crisis is all Rangers' fault because they died in 2012. Whoa, we're only joshing with yous. Don't adjust your transistor radio. It's us still. Don't you worry about that. Livingston's next game is against one half of the worst double act in the world after Ant and Dec, Celtic. We've asked the troops to tell us any of their favourite memories from games against Celtic for Livingston over the years. Povey, tell us your Celtic memory.
I've got to go back to the first time we ever got a point against them. Just that Brotto save. You know, at the time, I had my eyes shut. Didn't even see it happen. But that was outstanding. Henrik Larsson getting missing a penalty against us, and then us getting a point. That was just obviously the start of that season was just insane. And so I wanted to just bring that one up first of all. Another one that I've got a wee memory. Now I can't even remember what game it was, but it was when so the season when Craig Bellamy was playing for Celtic. I just remember the chant in the South Stand where I sat. Soon as it's right, Bellamy shout. And that was an absolute belter, that. And that was sung the whole game. I can't even. We definitely lost that game, obviously. But
he probably scored a hat trick,
I remember actually. Sorry, I'm throwing another one. This just come to me, and one of you will probably talk about this. But we're 4-0 down against Celtic. But I left at half time in a wee rager because I was a wee emo phase or something like that, and I was I was raging that we were 4-0 down Celtic. But they missed us getting it back to 4-3. That was annoying. That Burton O'Brien getting a hat trick or something like that. I wasn't there.
I looked it up earlier. It was 4-2. But I remember that game, and it was Burton O'Brien got both goals, but I remember that game because Celtic were 4-0 up, as you said, at half-time. Unbelievable Celtic team as well. I think it was the season after Larsson had left, so they still had Sutton, Hartson, Neil Lennon was still playing, Petrov was still there, and they got booed at full time because they won 4-2 because we scored 2 goals. Their fans booed them off the pitch, and I remember the media, our sports sound on the way home was oh, it's another disappointing result for. Fucking won 4-2. They still won the game. How is this? I think it might have been Gordon Strachan's first season or something. But I remember that game quite well. I do remember that one. Thomas, you said you had a good one, so tell us your Celtic memory.
So, I couldn't even tell you what game this is, but this is a memory for me that sticks out among others as one of my happiest memories in football. So a bit of backstory to this. I used to go to all the open days and stuff down at the club, as I'm sure we all did. Got loads of the players' autographs. Had my wee book. I've still got it today. Got all the players' autographs. But my 2 favourite players of that 2001-2002 season I never managed to get, and that is Javier Sanchez-Brotto and David Fernandez. So we were playing Celtic at home. Obviously didn't expect the result. It was the season that Fernandez and Brotto had left, I'm sure. So they were kind of sitting on the bench at Celtic. Or not even sitting on the bench. And my dad had got tickets for hospitality through his work. And that was kind of class. I wasn't going to that many games at that time. And, to go to a Celtic game, quite a big occasion, full stadium, blah, blah, blah. It was amazing. So I sit down, get our seats, we're sitting there, pure buzzing, about to watch the game, and then 2 Spanish stallions walk along in front of me and sit down in the 2 chairs directly in front of me. Who were those men? Javier Sanchez-Brotto and David Fernandez. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my luck. It was just the best thing ever. I think Livingston probably got pumped that day, but I finally managed to add 2 of my favourite ever Livingston players, kind of, especially from that era, to my lovely little autograph book. And they were so lovely to me and so nice. And they've got pride and place in that book now. I'll need to dig it out because it's fantastic. But it just sticks out to me as such a cool memory. And just lucky as well. They could have been sitting anywhere. If they'd sit another row forward or, 5 or 6 seats over them, I probably wouldn't. One might not have realised, and two wouldn't have had the kind of the balls to go and speak to them. But it was just class, absolute class. Good memory.
I would get them to sign my tits if I was see them now.
Owen, what about yourself?
I have been very lucky in terms of I've seen Livingston do almost everything and anything within Scottish football. I've seen us win a major trophy. I've seen every single winning game for winning every single division that we've ever won. I saw us clinch 3rd place in the SPL. I've done it all. Apart from see Livingston beat Celtic. I was working on the day that we beat Celtic 2-0 and I thought, could have got the day off, but no. I was like, nah, we're playing Celtic. Celtic are flying. They're on their way to 9 in a row. What's the point in even trying to bother getting that day off? Sitting driving the 909 CityLink service to Glasgow. And I think it was at Stirling bus station, and said, has anyone heard the Celtic score? They're 2-0 down to Livy. And I was like, what? And everyone thought I was raging because everybody thought I was. I was like, no, I'm a fucking Livy supporter, man. So I managed to secretly get my wireless earbuds and put a wireless earbud in my ear, put my hat over my ear, and I've got Sky Sports up on the thing with the ticker, the wee ticker thing, and I've got off the ball, not off the ball, open all mics in my earphone, and obviously I'd missed both goals, but then it's like, Celtic, Edward, it's over the bar, fucking Sarkic, save, fucking, I was absolutely, so I get to Buchanan Street bus station just as the full-time whistle blew, and I went into RS McCall, I'm running about RS McCall, fucking buying bottles of Fanta, fucking spraying them all over. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing feeling. And I wasn't even there, which is so disappointing. But my second very quick memory of a Livingston Celtic game that I was at wasn't even the full team. It was actually Livingston reserves versus Celtic reserves. The reason why I went to that game was because we just re-signed David Fernandez on loan from Celtic, and his first game was for Livingston reserves versus Celtic reserves. I can remember there must have been about 1,000 Livingston fans at this Livingston reserve game. The pop, the reaction that was given to David Fernandez when he came on as a sub was just amazing. It's a memory that I'll always remember.
Jake, what about yourself?
So I'm going to counter that. And remember, I was going to mention about the reserve game, but if it's the same reserve game we're talking about, Livingston actually won, and it was Pasquinelli's, I think it was first game. Now, so I'm not sure if they were entirely the same game or not, but I went to a reserve game against Celtic at Ammanville. The place was absolutely rocking. This new guy, Pasquinelli, comes in. Not sure if he scored a hat-trick, but it was against a Celtic team that had like Didi Regat, and had a lot of players that were awfully come back from injury. Bobby Petta were all playing. This team were no mugs, and we absolutely smoked them. And I remember Pasquinelli playing. That was the first time I saw him, and I was like, who is that beautiful man? And why has he not been playing? Where the fuck did he come from? So, yeah, that was really good. That was probably because we hadn't won really against them. So that was kind of a good memory of that. And what was my other memory? I think it was the 0-0 game. I think it was last season, but it was Lucy's first Livy game with me, and I was like, "Come down and go to the Celtic game. Like we might get pumped." And we played great. I mean, it was a pretty uneventful game, but I remember we were sat right beside like all the kids. We couldn't get seats anywhere near you guys, so we were like right in like the A section with all these babies, and we're just kind of like, and you just hear like the Celtic fans are so close and they're so loud and so sectarian. And you've just got all these like these wee kids beside you that know nothing. They're just kind of like, you know, swearing at them and that. And it was great. Anyway, so we've technically, whenever Lucy's watched a Livy game at the Tony Mac, we've not lost. So she's never allowed to come back, basically. But yeah, nothing but good memories recently against Celtic. I stand up against, know how to play them, and so weekend's going to be interesting, but still kind of dreading at the same time.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. Like a lot of the memories against Celtic recently, I've actually been all right. It was a game. It was a League Cup game at Celtic Park. I think it must have been just before my birthday. I think I was turning 17 or 16. Anyway, but my dad sort of organised like a group of the boys to go. He drove us through to Celtic Park that night. I think it was me. I'm not entirely sure if my brother was there, but me, Ryan Barmanroy, Mark Stables, and I think Paul Hunter was there. And we go to the game, uneventful. It was the Masoni years. I think Roddy McKenzie played, but it was fucking Rocco Quinn played for Livy. That's Dave Mackay, I think, was playing Murray Davidson, and we got absolutely annihilated. I think it was 5 or 6 maybe. And we walked back to my dad's car. He parked in this wee like off street off Celtic Park. As we got closer to the car, we could see like there was stuff shining, like reflecting on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Got closer, the passenger window, my dad's car had been smashed.
Oh, for fuck's
by
sake.
a few bombs, right? And my dad's like, fuck's sake. So he sort of drives to a garage and sort of clears everything up. And obviously, we're having to sit. It was freezing. It was September, but I remember it being absolutely freezing. Didn't have anything to tape up the window or anything, or any bin bags to put against it. And so we're driving home along the M8, dejected. My dad's fucking raging about the car. We're raging about the score. And we get to about Motherwell, and Mark Stables at the back of the car just leans forward for the middle seat and just goes, "John, I'm not being funny, but is there any chance you could roll the window up?" And my dad, I thought my dad was going to crash the car on the hard shoulder. He was like, "What?" I was like, "Mark, the window's been smashed, man. Like, we spent about half an hour clearing it up." And he went, "Oh, right, aye, okay. Right, fair enough." Just like, oh my God. Still to this day, I think I've told Mark that story, and I'm sure he's like, no, obviously I meant it, but
No, I didn't.
100% thought my dad just had the window down, bombing along the M8 at 70 mile an hour for a laugh, man. Nah, that was my Celtic memory.
So that's us for another week. Make sure you check out our socials for our very special guest that we will announce in the next couple of days, another club legend. Also, if you have missed any of our other episodes, you can check them out now on all good streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. Forza Livy, #Lions in the Camp. See you next week. Come on, Jake, you fucking piece of shit.